Misconduct after the Health Professions Council of South Africa concluded its hearing. The well-known sports scientist personality was brought into question when he advised a mother via Twitter to wean her child on foods low in carbohydrates and high in fat. In his new book, author and journalist Daryl Ilburys follows the trial and speaks to the supporters, the detractors, and Professor Noakes himself. He joins us now in our studios in Johannesburg to talk to us about his book. Good morning to you and thank you so much for coming through.
Good morning, thank you.
Thank you so much indeed. Let's just first get your response on the verdict itself.
It was going to happen. It was absolutely going to happen. The case against him was flimsy at the best. As someone who specializes in the media, it was straightforward that it was going to be the case was going to end up this way because they just never had a case. They never had a case.
Yeah, and Professor Noakes himself called it a witch hunt. Do you agree?
Strong term, but I think there's an element of truth to that when you go back as I did, when you actually have a look at the tweets and they have a look at the context around the tweet, have a look at the context around the charges against him. There's something definitely fishy about it, I must admit. Yes.
But I think the most important question here, Daryl, is what did the case reveal about the science, the media, as well as the consumers themselves?
I think what's important to bear in mind is that science is continually evolving, it's continually changing. That's one of the reasons why you need science journalists. And in a situation like this, what it did prove is the fact that everything we know about nutrition is not necessarily correct, and it can change. Sometimes it happens as small incremental changes. Sometimes it takes someone such as Tim Noakes, the quiet maverick, to completely turn it on his head, and that's exactly what's happened.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your book, if you can just let our viewers see the cover. There you are. Tim Noakes, the Quiet Maverick. What is contained in this book?
In a way, it's the backstory or the context to the tweet. Okay. So it brings together a combustible mix of scientific ignorance, the rather volatile relationship we have with food, the rather disrupted media environment that people are actually engaging with, and how along comes someone who is one of the world's most respected authorities in sports science, and he's got a history of maverick behavior, and he flicks a switch and all hell breaks loose. And then the unexpected consequences of that, which is basically what the trial revealed.
Yeah, and you got to speak to everyone, so to say. You've got to speak to the supporters, the detractors, as well as Prof himself.
Yes.
How was the experience, Nje, of compiling this book?
It was fascinating. As a science journalist, you have to keep an open mind. So I had an open mind going in. I had a couple of hypotheses, and funny enough, most of them were proven incorrect. So there's so many twists and turns in the book. Even I find it surprising, and I wrote it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you hear so many different stories. But what's important is that, especially when it comes to things such as science and human nutrition, there's no right and wrong. There's no two sides to every story. It's very, very complicated.
Yeah, and as you say, that science evolves with time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Science evolves with time, and every now and then it gets flips on its head.
But then the book itself, it's not just, or should I say it's more than just about or whether painting is good or it's not good, but it's about the relationship that people have with an increasingly fragmented media. You detail your challenges of being a science journalist in the beginning of the book. After this case that Prof had with HPCSA, how are things looking? Are there any changes that you have perhaps observed?
One of the biggest changes is that the current nutrition guidelines, which most people in South Africa are expected to follow, have been shown to be incomplete and possibly faulty. So basically what the HPCSA trial has actually done is has given Tim Noakes an opportunity to show the other side of the story, and there's increasing evidence all the way around the world to showing that he is correct. So in fact, what this could very well do is put those current nutrition guidelines on trial and actually show them to be incomplete and possibly faulty.
Yeah, and how important was it for you to write this book for the year?
It was very, very important because for me, when I wrote it, I had the aim of getting a science book into the current affairs section of leading bookstores, and we've managed to actually do that. Yeah. And that's a major achievement for science.
Yeah, so the book is doing quite well.
The book is doing incredibly well. I think a lot of people are beginning to realize it's a lot more controversial than what a lot of people thought. And that seems to be doing very well for it.
All right. But for an ordinary person like me, why should I get that book?
That's actually a very good question. I think it's important as a consumer of both media and food, to take charge of what you eat and what you consume, not only in the media, but also from your plate, and have an informed decision every time you sit down to have a meal. I think that's critical.
All right. So I know that obviously the book, it's not about whether banting is good or bad, but what's your take quickly on banting?
I think banting works for people for whom it's the best diet. I know that sounds a bit strange.
A lot of people are seeing the results from banting.
A lot of, I tapped into social media, I tapped into a lot of people who have actually turned their ill health around, people who were diabetic, and diabetes was apparently a disease that can't be treated, and it's treatable. It shows it's treatable, you can actually reverse it. So the evidence is out there.
All right. No, we'll leave it at that, Daryl. Thank you so much for chatting to us.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Well, remember that we are talking the ANC National Policy Conference that starts today, and as ANC delegates descend on